So I want to talk briefly about what I believe we are all living through, which is a transition from knowledge to wisdom. I love the definition of a philosopher. A philosopher is a lover of wisdom. What is wisdom? Let's define wisdom as being intangible knowledge. Knowledge is something that you know, right? But it's descriptive. It gives you some understanding about something, right? And that something is typically something tangible, an object, something that can be characterized through a word, a label. And it's a description again, right? You don't know really anything in essence, but knowledge as such, in general terms, is considered to be the understanding about descriptive characters of certain things which can be observed, right? Which can be seen, which can be perceived with the senses. So what I have in front of me is a chair, right? I know this is a chair, and I know stuff about this chair. I know what's made of. It's made of wood, right? Another concept, another label about something that if I go deep enough within, I ultimately don't know what it is, right? You are always having layers and layers and layers of further and further and further and deeper abstractions from this seemingly ordinary and non-interesting thing, which is a chair. So knowledge covers all this spectrum, right? I see the chair, I have an understanding about what the chair does and what can be used for. I go then deeper, and then I look at the wood, and then I understand what the wood is in terms of material and how it compares to other types of material like metal and softer materials than wood, and then have entire theses about everything related to this chair, right? And all of this is knowledge. This is how we define it. We know about stuff. Okay, so when does knowledge become wisdom then? When I have interesting ideas about the chair, or when I can transcend this whole field of descriptions and develop the kind of insight about this chair which has nothing to do with descriptive characteristics, right? And it might sound strange, it might sound cryptic, right? Philosophers oftentimes discuss in concepts and in abstract words which don't necessarily translate to something tangible, right? Philosophy, wisdom, is rather intangible because it talks about the essence of stuff more than about the stuff in terms of observable characteristics, right? And of course, there are different layers of abstraction, right? I can say about this chair that it embodies the entire universe in it, that the entire universe is in this chair, right? What does it mean? It doesn't mean anything. But it can mean something if you want to care about understanding this sentence deep enough. But then you would say, okay, but why would I care about understanding this sentence? Good question. The strange thing is that maybe it's not strange, and maybe this is how evolution works, but as we age, we tend to get bored and slightly disgusted with just knowing stuff from a purely descriptive point of view. I know, it's just a chair, right? Knowledge reduces things because knowledge sits at the edge of human comprehension in terms of what the mind can perceive and understand and grasp. So if you're forced to use your mind to understand what you experience, then you are implicitly adding this kind of filter of a forcing function on top of the objects and everything that you experience with your senses, so that you can describe it with words. So then your universe becomes very constrained, right? The universe that you have is exclusively created of labels and concepts and things that you can observe and talk about. But underneath all of that, there is nothing really. Because like we said, knowledge goes from high-level concepts really, really deep down. But at the end of the day, this exploration, these layers of abstraction, they never end as such. Right? So you can talk about the chair and the wood and the screws and everything for your entire life. And that would not be a fulfilling life. That would not be a fulfilling existence. Why? Well, because it might happen, it might be the case that your life is not, or should not, or may not be exclusively reserved to talking and understanding things from this purely conceptual point of view, in which you have to attach to words and their high-level definition so that you feel that you know stuff. So this kind of tangible knowledge has a cap. And when I say has a cap, I'm talking about what it can provide to you. What gives you back? It gives you a way to communicate with others, right? That's why we do it all the time, because having the same understanding of what a chair is and what a chair does for us is good to establish a conversation, right? We cannot talk in philosophical terms all the time. We cannot talk about this kind of intangible knowledge that I'm pointing at, right? In terms of wisdom all the time. We cannot say, if I want you to do something about this chair or with this chair, it doesn't help if I point you in a direction where this chair doesn't provide any value to you, right? Any meaningful contribution to your life, right? This statement of the universe is contained in this chair is worth contemplating about, but it doesn't serve you from a purely functional point of view. And I think I heard this at some point, and I think it's an accurate description of who we are. We are not human beings. I heard someone say, we are human doings, right? We have to do something all the time. Why is that? Why is that compulsion so prevalent? Because we live exclusively in our heads. What does it mean, we live exclusively in our heads? It means that everything that we experience in a subjective way on a day-to-day basis is filtered through this kind of functional, mechanistic filter in which we have to understand, what does it mean to us? What can I do with it? Okay, what can I do with it? So if you always translate the usefulness or the utility of something into how actually it serves you concretely in terms of giving you something or doing something with it, then you cannot transcend this kind of tangible knowledge, right? Because tangible knowledge is exclusively concerned with what can you do with stuff, or about stuff, now that you know what they are in terms of high-level concepts, right? So this descriptive knowledge, this tangible knowledge about stuff is useful because it helps you do stuff in your life, in your professional life, at that level of abstraction, which ultimately renders a result for others, right? You create a product, you create a service, you do stuff in order to get remunerated. That's why, of course, doing things typically translates to better marketability than being, right? In terms of attitude and state of mind. That's why, you know, like philosophers, you don't see a lot of philosophers in this world who are paid very well. There are a few, but you know, it's not a safe route if you want to make money. But what are we missing then? What is the trade-off? And I've pointed at this, right? There is this cap in terms of real fulfillment that you can get from your life by sticking to tangible knowledge only when it comes down to interacting with the world. So why wisdom? Why should you care about it? Well, if anything, because knowing stuff in general, from a pure tangible perspective, like in a conceptual way, starts to not be so valuable anymore, right? We start to have comprehensive and even exhaustive body of knowledge online where we can know anything about everything in like a matter of seconds, which is nice. But should we now learn and spend all our lives learning about stuff, or exploring something that allows us to go beyond this superficial quality of understanding, which is knowing about stuff? In the future, I do believe that wisdom will be the currency of value for us, especially as human beings. The focus will not be on what you know, but why do you know what you know? Why is that important to me? Why do I care about what you know? How is that serving me and my needs? And these are not egoistic questions. These are the questions that you have to respond to whenever you are learning about stuff. Because those questions are the ones that you will be evaluated against in terms of contribution and market value, right? Market perceived value. If I don't care or I don't need your knowledge, I don't need you. As a professional, of course, right? You remain as valuable for the world as before or as you will be in the future, irrespective of what you know in the end. But as a professional and as a value add in the marketplace, what you know starts to matter much more in the future from the angle of why it matters to know this thing over the other thing. So I think transcending knowledge in that way and becoming a wise person and focusing on the insights, right, beyond this superficial understanding, and finding meaning in what you're doing and translating that meaning to other people so they can see also the meaning in it. And find something that calls you, for a lack of a better word, and is purposeful to you and energizes you, is so important, because this is, in my opinion, the only way in which you can pull others into the same story and give the kind of excitement to them as well, right? What makes you happy will also generate happiness for others. It is what it is. This is how it works. And you cannot be happy by simply knowing about stuff your whole life. You have to know why you care about knowing that. And that's a very intimate journey of transformation for every single one of us. Why you want to learn or develop expertise in a certain area over another one. Why is that one important to you? Because it pays better? Okay. Is that justification enough for you to live a happy, fulfilling, everyday existence? It might have been, but will it be until the end of your days? If you are in your 30s or in your 40s, will you be able to simply execute on the same thing, to just do the same things that you've been doing up to this point for the rest of your life, just because it had a good monetary value or return? What are you compromising on? What is the trade-off that you are consciously or unconsciously making every single day while engaging in those activities? Very difficult questions to respond to, absolutely. But I think today is a good time to do it, because I think we are facing a big reset and the leveling of what it means to be a professional in the world, what it means to create value for the marketplace, what it means to actually be valuable to another person. What does it mean to create service for others? To be stuck in the old ways of doing things repetitively just because we know how to do it and we are comfortable, irrespective of how valuable and relevant that thing is? Capitalizing on the knowledge that we got up to this point? Or is it that we have to transcend this high level and superficial knowledge and go beyond it and ask deeper questions of ourselves, of others, of understanding what is beyond knowing about stuff? Why do I care about that in the first place? Why do I actually care about doing anything at all, right? It sounds like I'm talking about a midlife crisis or something, which I might go through, who knows. But if I'm going through it, I'm at least happy, because clearly this is something that I want to cultivate further. I love being a lover of wisdom, and I love also integrating this wisdom with the kind of engineering and rational and analytical rigor that I've developed throughout my life. I think it's a very nice consolidation of the two. And I encourage you also to do the same. And see how uncomfortable it feels at first, not to know why you are doing what you're doing, and start asking those kind of questions of yourself. Just sit with that discomfort, because it's better to sit with it now when you still have some leverage than to be forced to acknowledge the fact that what you know is not that useful or relevant anymore, and then fight the struggle of detaching that kind of lack of appreciation from your identity and from who you are. You have this responsibility first for yourself, to see who you want to become in the future, what kind of professional you want to be, what kind of services or products, or what kind of value you want to create for others. Why should others care about you? Because if you don't care about how you can best serve them, why should they care about what you care about? Think about that. I will leave it on this philosophical note. But if you think about it, it's not that philosophical in the end. It translates to some immediate need that we all have, which is, who do we want to become and why?